Our water connection acknowledges the traditional custodians of the land throughout Australia and their connection to country, sky, water, and community. We extend our respect to the traditional custodians of the place where you are listening. This episode is recorded in Kaurna Country and on the land of Colombia's indigenous peoples. What if I told you that one of the biggest cities in Latin America is facing a water crisis? What exactly is causing this crisis, and how can cities like this one build resilience for future generations? This episode, we explore the city where I was born, Bogota, and the water crisis that they are currently experiencing. My name is Jess Borges. I'm on a mission to increase your water curiosity, and this is A Water Connection. This episode is very special for me. Since I launched our Water Connection in 2024, I've wanted to bring perspectives from Colombia, my home country, into this conversation. It's something that I've had in my mind for a while, and I know many of you in our community actually asked for this as well. So today, this moment is finally here. I'm thrilled to be speaking today with Professor Juan Saldarriaga. Professor Juan is a leading expert in urban hydraulic systems, with over 25 years of experience in research and academia at Universidad de los Andes in Bogotá, in Colombia. As the director of the Water Distribution and Sewerage Systems Research Center, or CIACO in Spanish, his work has focused in optimizing potable water distribution and urban drainage systems, particularly in developing countries. His research spans from mathematical to physical modeling, water quality and distribution networks, and innovative approaches to sustainable urban drainage. With a deep commitment to advancing hydraulic engineering, Juan has played a key role in shaping the future of water infrastructure in Latin America. On top of this, Juan was also my lecturer for most of my water courses at uni, was my supervisor for my bachelor, my master thesis, and has always been a great mentor for my career. So I'm very happy to have him with me today. Welcome to A Water Connection, Juan.
Oh, thank you very much for that introduction, Jessica. It was too much. But anyway, I'm here and I'm trying to help you with all the questions that you have. And I hope that I can give the people in this podcast an idea of what is happening in my city, actually, which is Bogota in Colombia, nowadays related with the water supply system. So thank you very much again, Jessica.
No, thank you for coming. And I think this was a really great timing for us to try to shine the light into other countries and other cities in the world that might have had an experience in really different problems to what maybe we experience here in Australia. So, Juan, to make sure that we have everyone on the same page, because a lot of the people that will be listening to us haven't really learned anything about Bogota. Would you describe a little bit the city and its water supply system? How does it work?
Yes, of course. Colombia is located just in the equator. We are in the tropics. The main city in Colombia is Bogota, is the capital of our country. And as you can imagine, the weather in the tropics is very hot and humid, but that is very close to the sea. Colombia has coasts in both oceans, in the Atlantic Ocean and in the Pacific Ocean. It is the only country in South America that has coast in the two oceans. But Bogota is located very high in the mountains. The reason is when the Spanish came to Colombia during the conquista, as we said in Spanish, they went to the top of the mountains, mainly because of the weather. The weather is mild up the mountains. It's not very hot. It's just a middle kind of temperature, kind of weather. And that's more or less the location of Bogota. Bogota is located very far from the coasts. The near coast, which is the Pacific coast, is about maybe 800 kilometers in a straight line and is located in a plateau which is 2,600 meters above sea level. So that means that the average temperature in Bogota is about 15 degrees Celsius, which is very pleasant. It's not very rainy in tropical terms because the average rain here in Bogota is about 1,100 millimeters per year, which I guess in terms of Australia or some places in Europe is very high, but it's not very high in Colombia. In Colombia, it's very low. The average for Colombia is maybe 3,500 millimeters of water of rain in a year. And even we have places in which we don't measure the rain in millimeters, but in meters. There is one place in Colombia that has an average precipitation of about 13 meters per year. So you can imagine the
Wow.
amount of water. So it's
Yeah.
very strange that I am talking about a shortage of water in this moment, because in Colombia, because of the tropics, our problems are more related with excess of water, flooding in the cities in every part of the country. But what happened in Bogota? Bogota is very high in the mountains, as I said before, and that means that if you are very high in the mountains, even if you have rains, you don't expect to have very large rivers. Actually, there is one river very close to the city. It's called the Bogota's River. And the average discharge in that river when it enters into a city, please remember the numbers, is about 20 cubic meters per second,
Hmm.
which in terms of the rivers in South America is almost nothing. But we have that source and we are using that source. So in terms of water supply, and I have to say before that Bogota is a very large city. The main city, the Bogota city, has a population of about 7.5 million people today. But in terms of water, the water supply system is in charge of some small cities around Bogota as well, in the same plateau. And we have industries and we have commerce in a very active city. So that means that the equivalent population in terms of water supply system is about 10 million people. We have two sources, two main sources. There are several of them, but we have two main sources. One is on the north part of the city. The Bogota's River runs from north to south through this plateau, which is called the Sabana de Bogota. And we have several reservoirs upstream in the north part of the city. The names of the reservoirs are, and is very well related with the introduction that Jessica did at the beginning of this podcast. They have indigenous names for the Indians that were located here before Christopher Columbus came to Latin America. The names are Tomine, which is the largest one. Then we have Cisga and Neusa. And those three reservoirs give water to the Bogota's River upstream of our first potable water treatment plant. The name, again, is Tibitok, which is an indigenous name. It has a capacity of about 10.5 cubic meters per second, and it was designed maybe 80 years ago, so it's very old, but it's still running. And this is part of the water supply system in Bogota. It's about 40 kilometers from the city. There's a pipeline coming from, two pipelines actually, coming from that part of the city, and the water comes using only gravity. And that is one important point here, because even though you have a very high city, the mountains here in Los Andes, they are even higher. So all the systems onto Bogota by gravity. This system and the second one. The second one is to the east of the city. To the east of Bogota is the division of the catchments between the catchment that goes to the Caribbean Sea in the north coast of Colombia and the catchments which go to the east to the Orinoco River, which is the border between Colombia and Venezuela, and also with Brazil, quite far from our city. So we are taking part of the water from that catchment, very high in the mountains, maybe between around 3,500 meters above sea level. So that means 900 meters above Bogota.
Bogota,
Water
yeah.
comes by gravity using tunnels. And there is a reservoir up there, which is the Chusa Reservoir. It's a large one. It's not the largest, but it's a very large one, and a second small reservoir near the city, which is called San Rafael. That plant was commissioned about maybe 1985, so that makes 40 years ago. It's the newest one, and it has a capacity of around 12.5 cubic meters per second. So adding the two plants, we have more or less 21.5, 22 cubic meters per second of maximum potable water.
Yeah.
There is one characteristic which is very important. The weather is different. We have two systems, one in one catchment, which is the Magdalenas River catchment, and it has weather which is the typical weather that we have in Los Andes mountains. So it has two rainy periods in the year and two more or less dry periods in the year. It's what we call dry. You can imagine that here we always have rain. But
Yeah, there's
let's
always some rain. Yeah.
the other plant is in the Orinoco's basin. Again, has the same quantity, two periods of rain and two periods of less rain, but they are different. So when it's raining in the Magdalena catchment, it's not raining in the
In
Orinoco
the other
catchment.
one.
So you have that advantage, and the system was working quite well, and we had enough water, but the system is not very reliable to changes. So more or less, Jessica, that was the brief description of the system here in Bogota.
Yeah, it's amazing summarized description of it. So Bogota is fed by gravity of different reservoirs in two different catchments. So that is already quite different to some of the cities in Australia. So I'm sure it will be very interesting to people to learn from this. And I mean, we're talking that it rains quite a lot over there and that we have two catchments with different weather patterns. So that helps. So can you give us an overview of what happened then? How come that now the city is having a current, is going through a water crisis? What factors have contributed to this?
That's an excellent question. So we are just in the middle of this crisis. What happened is the story starts maybe 2 years ago. What happened is that because of climate change, we are not having the same amount of rain in our catchments. We have the two extremes. Our weather system is highly affected by El Nino phenomena and La Nina phenomena. El Nino is boy, La Nina is girl. It's more or less the idea. When we have a El Nino year in Colombia, that means that we are having less rain than usual, less rain than average in the north part of Colombia, the Magdalena's catchment. So we have less rain, and then if we have La Nina in 1 year, La Nina means excess of rain here in Colombia. Those, in that case, we have quite a lot of problems with floodings in all the country because it's an excess of rain. In the other catchment, the weather is different. So El Nino means quite a lot of rain in the Orinoco's catchment, and La Nina means less rain. So what happened is that we have maybe two El Nino years more or less together. So that means that in 2022 and 2023, we have quite a lot of less rains in the Magdalena River catchment. And then those El Nino years were not very strong, so we didn't have enough rain in the other catchment. So we have a weather, so that means that our system does not have any reliance against climate change. So that was the problem. So we started to empty the reservoirs. The Bogotá's Water Authority started to use the same amount of water, and that was done in years 2022 and 2023. By the end of 2023, we came to a crisis. All the reservoirs were very low. Part of the problem was that the authorities here, the local city authorities, they didn't want to start rationing of the water. So we kept using all the water without knowing And then that means that that rationing of the water should have started at the beginning of 2023. That would be the logical things to do. But the local authorities didn't want to do it because of the political cost
Cost,
that
yeah.
that could have. Because by the end of that year, 2023, around October, there was an election of the new mayor.
Mm-hmm.
So they didn't want to give the notice to the people. And that was
Yeah.
part of the problem. Then, by the beginning of 2024, with the new mayor, he started to see the problem. And by March of last year, we started to have this shortage. And the problem is that it's not very easy to save water. We must save water. So we started with a campaign, a publicity campaign in the city, just to tell the people to try to save as much water as they can in the houses, whatever. So more or less, again, the numbers. Remember, I told you that at the entrance of the city, the water discharge in the Bogotá River is 20 cubic meters per second.
Yeah.
The total amount of water consumed by the city in a normal year, so let's talk about the beginning of last year, before the emergency, it was 19 cubic meters per second. So the city consumes the same amount of the average water in Bogotá's river at the entrance of the city. So that is a huge problem of pollution in the river. You can imagine a river receiving the double of the discharge in wastewater. So, but I am not talking about this. Maybe
Yeah.
we can talk about that.
We can do another episode.
Yeah, probably. So saving water is not very easy. And it's not very easy because if you know that tomorrow you are not going to have the water service, then you save water today just to use that water tomorrow.
Yes.
Using tanks, small tanks in houses, whatever. So it's very difficult. But even though this campaign, this publicity campaign, did work a little bit, and we managed to reduce our consumption from 19 cubic meters per second to 16 cubic meters per second. So we are saving 3 cubic meters per second, but still is not very easy to make the reservoirs full again with just that discharge. We need more rains. But again, this year is not raining very much. So we are not saving water in the reservoirs. So this problem is going to continue maybe for another year and is very difficult. That means that our system is not reliable against climate change. And also it's not very reliable against any problems that could happen in some part of the system. So that again is a short story about what's happening here in Bogota.
Yeah, no, that's very interesting. So at the moment, since March last year, then there are some water restrictions in place. So I mean, I think I kind of have heard through my family. So every so often, every 9 or so days, there is one day that you don't get water. So they divide the city in areas. Is it like that? And then they cut the supply to one of those areas per day.
Yes, it is
Yeah.
because you can imagine that for a 10 million population, the water network is very large. So before the emergency, we had the city divided in different parts, managing more or less at the same pressure that they are called the DMAs. So we are the city divided in different DMAs. So to make the restriction, it was not very difficult in terms that you can close that part of the network very easily, but it has some problems. The first
Yeah.
one is that still some of those divisions in the network can have a population. The largest one has a population of maybe 1.5 or 1.6 million people without water
Yeah.
that day. It's every 9 days. So it's not very difficult for the people to be without water one day, especially because, as I said before, it's very easy to save some water the year before your restriction.
Yeah.
So it's not very effective, but we have other problems, and that makes the problem very difficult. If you cut the water in part of the network, that network is going to have some problems related with, for example, water hammer problems when you open again the water into the pipelines. The second part is that we are managing less velocities in the pipeline, so you are going to have some problems with water quality. And also, when you have empty pipes and you have any crack or any failure in one junction, whatever, then water from the water table, which could be contaminated, can come inside the pipelines
Come
of
into
the
the pipe.
water system. So you are having a high risk. To have intermittent water supplies is not a very good idea. You are
Yeah, no.
having some problems with water quality. So that's more or less the problem that we are having here.
Yeah, no, and for putting again into a reference, when you like one of the areas that will be without water, you say 1.8 million people. I live in a 1.3 million people city, so that would be all of Adelaide metropolitan area without water for one day. Yeah, I can imagine how that would have been a difficult decision for the leaders and for the politicians, because that would have put them in a really difficult situation. But it's also kind of the job to kind of look ahead and trying to make this decision when is the right time to do it. So yeah, that's very interesting, and I think that paints a picture of really what's going on right now in Bogota. Juan, how do you think Bogota's water distribution system can improve then the resilience? How can this improve in the future to be prepared for more drought periods like what we have seen in the last few years?
It's an excellent question. The answer is not apply only to Bogotá, but to any other city in the world with
Yep.
these problems. In the short time frame, what you can do is to make your system more efficient, and you can save some water doing that. It's normal to have a certain percentage of non-revenue water in a city. That's normal around the world. So that's the first step that you can do is try to improve your efficiency. That means that to lower that percentage of water leakage or
Yep.
non-revenue water that you have. So
Non-revenue
that's
water.
what the Bogotá's Water Authority is trying to do right now. It can give you some savings of water in a very short time. I mean, in a time frame of maybe 1 year or so. So that's what you can do just to improve your measurement equipment, just to really know that percentage, to have, for example, a very short time response in case of a leakage, that you rush to that point, close the valves and take the water. And
Yeah.
you can also start a program to replace some old pipes in several parts of the city, because in every city, especially in Latin America, because we have an explosion of population in the 60s and the 70s of last century, then the cities grew very fast. So you have all the networks from the first half of last century. They are made of very old pipes, of course, and most of them they are cast iron, old pipes, and asbestos cementos
Asbestos.
pipes. The
Mm-hmm.
newest part of the city, of course, they are more in plastics, mainly PVC here in Bogota.
Mm-hmm.
Some cities could be also polyethylene. So you can start a program, for example, to replace the old pipes in a special part of the city. So you have several activities that you can do to lower that and make your system a little bit more reliable against, for example, climate change. But that is not enough. What you should do is to increase your capacity with new projects. And we forgot here in Colombia, in Latin America, that when you are looking to the projection of your water demand in the city, and you know the offer that you have of potable water in your potable water treatment plants, those two curves, the demand and the offer, cannot be very close. The offer should be always at least a 30% higher than your demand. So
Yes.
making the projections, you could easily calculate that maybe in the next 5 years, you are going to have your demand curve very close to your offer curve, and then you can act from now, because you know that in 5 years in the future, you are going to be in a problem.
Uh-huh.
And you have to act now, because a new project, a new potable water treatment plant
Yeah.
to make another intake or whatever project that you can have just to increase the capacity in a current plant, whatever. Those are solutions that will take at least 5, 6 years since you start to identify the project till you finish and
Yeah,
commission
for
the
sure.
project. You have to
Mm.
make the design, you have to make take all the permission, you have to construct, you have to put it in operation. So we didn't that in Bogota.
Mm.
We are now trying to, or the water authority is trying to start some of those projects, but that means that those projects are going to be commissioned in the
Yeah.
future, in 5 years.
Yeah.
So we have to make quite a lot of improving the existing infrastructure, for example, to see if we can improve the efficiency in the current potable water treatment plants. And as I was saying before, to make the network more efficient again. So that's more or less what you can do. You can do short time frame projects, and then you have the future projects that will take quite a lot of more time.
Yeah, for sure. And I think I had it as a question, but you answered already. Like on that balance between the short term solutions and the long term, definitely trying to be as efficient as possible, do some repairs and like lower that non-revenue water that'll help right now. But yeah, I mean, I think that is something that is very similar everywhere in the world. Like big infrastructure projects will take 5, if not 10 years to actually, from the moment that they're identified that we need them until that are in the ground, especially when water is so interlinked with like government and like election cycles and things like that. So all of that affects the way that we can develop some make decisions and develop some big infrastructure projects. So yeah, definitely I hope someone is thinking already in like what is the next best thing that Bogota needs while we work kind of on those short-term solutions. And yeah, talking about that, those short terms, only in the last couple of weeks, I saw that the Universidad de los Andes, through the research center that you lead, is starting actually a partnership with Bogota's water authority to develop a strategic plan to reduce those water losses and that non-revenue water, which is very, very interesting. I read the initiative aims to integrate new methodologies and new technologies to improve water management. So what do you think is going to be the outcome of this? What are those key strategies or technological innovation that this project is going to recommend the water authority to implement for these kind of short-term solutions?
Oh, that's an excellent question. We don't have the answer yet. We have
Yeah,
the,
yeah, yeah.
the answer in your time, but I can guess a little bit what will be the most probable projects. But I will start with the technologies. The new technologies that we are trying to use, there are several of them that they are not currently in use here in Colombia that can help in these short-term solutions, and then that will help us to identify the long-term solutions. So, Empresa Acueducto de Bogotá's Water Authority all the time is taking quite a lot of measurements in the system. Measurements related with discharges in the network, pressures in the network, water quality in several points. They have measurements outside of the potable water plants, just at the outlet of the plants. And they also have water quality measurements there. So they are taking quite a lot of information regarding pressure in the different parts of the city, discharges, but they don't know very well what to do with that information. They are just getting information. They have some sort of analysis, but I think that's one of the key points that we can develop during this year, which is make a higher use of data analytics. Just to see, for example, how is the consumption behavior in the city. It is related with, I don't know, maybe if you have some commercial party in the city with different consumption habits or whatever. So we can have a little bit of information with this data analytics, for example, to see if some part of the city has unusual growth in water demand.
Yep.
And you can have answer with that very easily. Also, making some data analytics to the more technical measurements that is made normally by a water authority or water utility, then using data analytics to see the discharges going in some part of the city, in that part of the network, the pressures, then can let you to identify if you are having some problems with the actual pipelines, just to locate during using data analytics. If you have some leakage, large leakage in any part, in any pipeline, and then you can react even before it bursts.
Yeah,
Then
for
you can
sure.
save some water. And also using data analytics and using some process engineering, then you can very easily lower the response time of the water company to go to repair one leakage or one large burst very fast. For example, you can just have a hydraulic model and then someone call to the empresa and just say there is a large leakage in this part of the city, this street with this avenue, whatever. People call very fast to the company immediately. So then you send, looking at the water model, you can more or less guess what is the diameter of the
Yeah.
most probable diameter in the failure. Then you can set a car with all the pipelines that size, whatever, very fast. And also using the hydraulic model, then you can see very easily what valves you should
Bombs.
close to isolate that part of the network in
Mm.
which you have this burst. So the people going there, they know beforehand where they have to go to close the valves.
Yes. Yes.
So that use of models, hydraulic models, and communications and location of the different places in which you have the people to make these
Repairs.
reparations
Yeah.
yes,
Hmm.
in the network, then you can also lower the water that you lost in the case of bursts or leakages in the system. In the future, then probably you will have real-time control of those valves. Once that you locate the burst, then you can, from a control center, for example, close the valves, and then you can regard fast. So that's part of the future of the project. So what sort of projects are we going to plan? Projects related with data analytics, project related with accuracy of measurements. That's more related with electronic and electrical engineering. The measurements, what sort of measurements and what should be the accuracy of those measurements, both the macro equipment, the macro measurement, and the micro, because
Hmm.
by law here in Colombia, any household, any connection to the network should have its own micrometer. So what sort of micrometers? What should be the accuracy of them? So that should give us some other projects. Probably also to use new technologies to replace pipes in some part of the city. For example, the asbestos cementous pipes not only have the problem of leakages more frequent because of the age of the pipes, but also because it's a problem because of the asbestos. By law here in Colombia, nowadays, asbestos is not allowed
Yeah, you
in
can't use it.
any
Yeah.
sort of product, not
Hmm.
even in construction, not even, is not allowed, is out of the law. So you have to replace those pipelines. So probably some sort of projects in that case also could be part of the project. New technologies for pipe replacement, for example, you can replace some pipelines without digging and exhuming the old pipeline. Just leave the old pipeline below ground and then put the new pipeline.
Yeah.
So
Inside.
the
Mm.
idea is that, and also, of course, in a very long term, we are trying to help them to identify which one is going to be the most probable future project to increase the potable water production for the city. That's in the long term.
Yeah. No, that's very interesting. It sounds like a very exciting project, and like that we should definitely have a chat at this time next year and see how that project went and see how what the results of that were. I mean, in terms of challenges and like those projects, I see a lot of similarities. I think I had someone in season one, Andrew Margets, talking about smart water meters, for example. So like meters that you put outside the houses that they measure continuously, and they attached to an app that the owner of the house can look at, and the difference that it makes when people see in a graph how they're using water, it makes a lot of difference in the way that they behave. That happens a lot more in electricity here in Australia. And for example, you can see exactly how is your electricity consumption. And when you do the same with water, it makes a lot of a difference because suddenly people start realizing how they're consuming water. And of course, they have to pay for it. So it makes a kind of that connection that people sometimes don't see when they only get the bill every 2 months, which is the case here as well. We only get the bill here every 3 months, and it's just a bulk kind of volume that you use. And even for people like me working in this sector, it's really hard to understand that. But when you have smart water meters, it also helps people, for example, finding leaks in their own houses, because in the middle of the night at 2 a.m. in the morning, they should have zero water consumption. And suddenly the graph is showing a little baseline there, which is pointing out of a problem that sometimes is not the responsibility of the water utility because it's already kind of past the valve and is the responsibility of the owner of the house, but it's still counting towards like some losses there because it's not really water that has been consumed. So there you go, another idea there
Yeah,
to maybe
right.
try
Yeah,
it out
indeed. Yes.
over there. Well, there is more data, so it's a little bit of the balance. Then you have a lot more data to use, and sometimes too much data is just not a good idea either. This episode is proudly supported by the Chris Davis AM Fellowship, an initiative of the Australian Water Association. His legacy lives on through this fellowship, empowering efforts to keep his passion for innovation and community impact alive. We're honored to have the support of this fellowship this season too, as we continue to share stories that connect us all to water. Now, back to the episode. Juan, how would you explain your work to you have a friend that is not really in this sector, that doesn't know anything about water? How would you explain to them what you do for work?
Oh my, it's not very easy. I mean, especially because us as engineers tend to talk using quite a lot of mathematics and physics in our normal conversation. So it's not very easily to talk to people in a different field of knowledge or in a different profession. But I can give you an example of more or less how can I explain what I do, and it's related with making some comparison between the water supply systems and the blood systems in the human body. More or
Oh, yeah.
less, I talk about that we have to have blood in every part of of our body in any time. I tend to say to people this is more or less similar because when you start to talk about that, I ask them a question. Can you imagine a system in a large city like in Bogota in which a single person in Bogota can use as much potable water as he desires, and in any time of the day, as much water in any place in which he is located, and he has immediately access to potable water whenever he wants and as much as he wants, and with a water quality that is ensured by law. And that is, I said, a sort of a miracle. Can you imagine
Yeah.
that any person in Australia at this moment can use as much potable water as he or she wants in this moment? That's a miracle. So that's
It is.
more or less what I said a little bit. And then I talk also about the sewer system. And again, I make some comparison that you are in your house, you create wastewater, and then by sort of magic, that wastewater
Disappears.
and your house is clean without any odors, is just safe, and anything disappears magically. We are the magicians.
Yes.
I tell them that I am the magicians, making that magic a reality, and that for us is not magic, is
That's
a
right.
work.
It's a lot of work.
But you can imagine that any person can do that in large cities. Can you imagine person in New York City, 17 million population just in the 5 boroughs, 70 million population, and each one of them by magic can disappear the wastewater in just maybe 1 second, two
Mm.
seconds, and that's it. Magic.
That's right. I like that comparison. We're magicians, so and that's kind of what we need to make sure that people know a little bit more about the magic that we do for sure. Juan, what would be your message to young water professionals? People maybe starting their careers in this sector or studying in engineering and don't know this sector who might be listening to you right now.
Okay, yeah, that's. I can start with a story about when I was starting to study civil engineering many years ago. And I didn't know I wanted to study civil engineering because maybe construction projects, maybe structures analysis, more or less, a little bit of geotechnics. That was the idea that last year, high schooler, I guess in Australia they use the same, the senior people in high school, senior?
Yeah, yeah, high school.
Right.
Yes.
In high school, but you have the freshman, then the sophomore, then the juniors, and
Yeah,
then
okay. I think they
seniors.
don't use that here. Although I don't know anything about schools in Australia. So,
Oh, yes. Okay, I was a senior in my
yep.
school, my high school. And then I wanted to study civil engineering because I was very handy with mathematics and physics in my school. And then some professor from teacher told me that I should study engineering, civil engineering, and then I should study in Los Andes University, which is in Bogota. I was living in the coast, quite far from Bogota, so I came here since that time. And I came to study. I was happy because of the maths and the physics. But then maybe in my second year, or the beginning of the third year, I learned about that water hydraulics was part of civil engineering. I didn't know anything about water before that. So it was amazed. And I really enjoyed the fluid mechanics course. And also I enjoy going to the hydraulic lab in the hydraulic open channel hydraulics course, which is the following year. So I remember that what I really liked about fluid mechanics, it was that probably is the topic that is more related with science, with physics in civil engineering. So I really enjoy that because if you have a topic which is very related with physics and you are going to make a design of a pipeline or anything related with fluid mechanics, then because of the equations that are based on the basic physical laws, for example, the Newton movement laws, then you have quite a lot of less uncertainty on what
Mm.
you are doing. Your designs, what you are doing in fluid mechanics and in hydraulics, has quite a lot of less uncertainty that in other topics on civil engineering. And that was more or less the idea. It was because I was related, I really like it to be related with physics and mathematics, and I have been doing that all my career. But there is another point which was very important. When I already decided to go to the water knowledge before going to make my master's degrees and other studies that I did at that time, I was talking to an engineer. I remember it was an American engineer that came here to Los Andes University and asked me what was my plans. And he told me, if you are going to water, if you are going to be a hydraulic engineer, then you are going to be the man of the future. And that's I can send to the young people now. If you are going to the water sector because of the problems that we are having in the world about water supply, about sewer systems, about irrigation, about agricultural productions, about coastal problems with the raise of water level in the seas because of the climate change, we are going to have, or maybe you are going to have, not me, you are going to have many problems in the future to solve. So you are going to be the engineer of the future. And that is also an advantage because you are going to have more work opportunities and they are going to be very interesting. And there is another point that I would like to remark here. Working with water. Working with water, any water structure, working with water in any system, for example, a reservoir or even the coast, has another aspect which is very important and is that is beautiful.
That's right.
Working with water, seeing water is beautiful. So you are going to work with structures that has this aesthetical aspect that is quite very important. So that's I would like to say to these young people.
Yeah, no, that's beautiful. And I think you answered already the last question that I normally do, which is why do you work in water? And you kind of mentioned that love that you have for mathematics and how this was the area of civil engineering that had that. And like, yeah, it's a beautiful story to kind of learn here. And I would take the time to also say that just like this peasant, this American engineer probably told you you were going to be the engineer of the future. You were the inspiration to many people to actually get into this area. Quite a few people that I know around me, and myself included. I started in civil engineering also without knowing what the water sector was, and then someday I just sat on your classroom, and that probably changed the course of my life, you know. And it's been a wonderful career so far. I'm very passionate about it, and I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for your guidance and all the knowledge that you have given us. So I'll take the time on my podcast to thank you that, and in name of all the other people that have been your students, and that yeah, we're here working hard into making all of these a reality and all of these challenges now and in the future.
Thank you very much for those beautiful words. Thank you very much.
No, no, it's a pleasure to have you here. Thank you for your time today, Juan. I think we learned quite a lot. We made, I'm sure that people that maybe are not that familiar with Colombia and with Bogota learn a little bit more about how our system works over there, what are the problems that we're having at the moment, and also a little bit about the solutions, you know, what is the path forward. So thank you very much for joining us today in at Water Connection.
No, thank you very much for the opportunity to talk to you. I really enjoy it. Maybe my English is not very good, but I hope
Oh,
that you understand everything I did.
it's perfect. No, it's fantastic. It was really good to yeah, to have this conversation, and I hope if you're listening, you're enjoying it as well. So that's it for today on our Water Connection. Thank you for listening and being part of this community. Your voice matters to us, so I'll make sure that you can click on send us a message, which is a link that is in the description, to tell us one thing that maybe you learned today out of, I mean, you probably learn a lot of stuff today when we're talking about another country. If you have any feedback or ideas or new topics you want us to explore, just share them as well, and we will love to hear your thoughts. Don't forget to follow us on your favorite podcast platform. We're also on social media for any updates, highlights, and more ways to connect. Keep your curiosity flowing, and we'll see you next time.